Welcome back to Von Blues Boxing, man. What's going on with everybody? So, I wanted to get my predictions for the four belt undisputed junior middleweight title championship going on this weekend, unification bout also between Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano. Charlo is currently the WBC, WBA, IBF, and Ring Magazine Junior Middleweight Champion. Brian Castano is currently the newly WBO Junior Middleweight Champion. So in this matchup, man, this is going to be a great matchup. We're getting another four belt undisputed fight within the past 2 months. We had that, I believe, in May with Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. We got an excellent fight in there. Josh Taylor was victorious, won the, I believe, unanimous decision or close decision. It was close. But Josh Taylor became the undisputed junior welterweight 140-pound champion. Congratulations to Josh Taylor, my man. So now we got another one this weekend, July 17th on Showtime, 6 p.m. West Coast time, 9 o'clock Eastern time, and 8 o'clock Central time. So don't miss it. If you got Showtime, check out the fights, guys. I got it myself. You know I'm gonna be watching it. So in this fight, we got so let me get a little bit into it. I feel like that this fight has not had a lot of promotion for it, which I was kind of shocked, and I'm kind of like, damn, like, I wish PBC would have promoted this fight a little bit more, just like I wish Top Rank would have promoted the Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez fight more because of it both being a four belt undisputed fight. But I know with PBC having Earl Spence and Manny Pacquiao, that's where they're gonna put their money into. And Top Rank was looking at having Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder 3. So I know that's where a lot of their promotion and a lot of their promotion and a lot of their effort is going to go into those fights. So, I mean, I understand it to a certain extent. Those fights are going to draw more people to watch and more money, but four belt undisputed fights are, those legacy fights. And I think that they should get the same kind of promotion or the same, or at least equal the same kind of push, because those fights, man, they're rare to get. And I mean, they usually only happen when both guys are under the same boxing promotion in today's boxing. But I would have liked to see a little bit more promotion from PBC and Top Rank with the Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, and Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano fight we got coming up this weekend. But that's just a little bit of my thoughts on there. So let me get into it. So we got Jermell Charlo, the champion, unified champion. He is 5'11". He has a 73-inch reach. He's an orthodox fighter. He is 34-1 with 18 knockouts. His notable wins: Jason Rosario, his last fight, fought against the former WBA, IBF unified champion Jason Rosario, who took the belts off Julian Williams in a upset fight. He also came back and got his title back from Tony Harrison, who had won a razor thin or close decision against him in the first fight they fought, but he came back, stopped Tony Harrison in that fight, and got his WBC title bout. He also beat longtime top fighter at 154 pounds and former champion Austin Trout. He also beat Erickson Lubin, who is the #1 mandatory WBC contender for the junior middleweight champion, and who's been on the rise since that fight, as hasn't had any losses and just came off a big win himself against Jason Rosario, the former WBA IBF champion. He also had wins over Vanes Martirosyan. So I know people might be like, oh, Vanes Martirosyan, but Vanes Martirosyan was a good 54 pounder, and he held part of a title, and he was decent. Then he also beat Gabe Rosado. Now, that was in 2014. That was a while ago. But that win looked better and better, especially coming off that Bektemir win in that close fight with Danny Jacobs. Look better and better. Jermell, in his last 10 fights, he's had 7 knockouts. So Jermell has been putting people away. Jermell, early in his career, he was known as a boxer, a guy who would, he had some power, but Jermell would box, use his skills, and get the wins. But his past 10 fights, he's been putting guys away. In his last 3 fights, he's stopped the opponents. So, and he's developed his power. And Derrick James you got to give Derrick James some nod to that too. You know what I'm saying? Jermell has become a very powerful puncher and a very explosive puncher. So yeah, that's just a little rundown on Jermell Charlo. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of rundown on Brian Castano. Brian Castano is from Argentina. He's 5'7", 67-inch reach. He's 17-0-1. He has one draw with 12 knockouts. He is the WBO junior middleweight champion. His notable wins, not the biggest names, but he beat Patrick Teixeira, who's a world champion. I mean, some people may not give him a lot of credit for being a world champion, but at the same time, I give him credit for beating. Credit for beating Patrick Teixeira. He beat Wale Amatoso, who's always a rugged, tough kind of opponent. He had a split decision win against Michael Soro. Michael Soro is kind of one of the fringe champions. A lot of people don't know about him because he hasn't really came out of France and really took on top guys, but he's a decent junior middleweight. He had a draw with Edeslani Lara in a fight that some people thought he won. Had a draw against him, put on a good fight, put the pressure on Edeslani Lara, and really made Edeslani Lara work. Looked like he almost pulled it out. In the amateurs, he beat Sergey Devryanchenko and he beat Earl Spence. I know that's only the amateurs, but it shows you what kind of pedigree and what type of background Brian Castano got. And Brian Castano is a good 154-pounder. He just hasn't had the notable names. And I think sometimes as boxing fans, we get caught up in the names, not realizing sometimes these guys are pretty damn good. Just because they don't got the biggest names on their resume don't mean these guys are not good, high-level, world-class type of fighters. So in this fight, in this fight, I've been looking at it and I've been excited about this fight ever since I heard it was going to get announced. And when I seen it brewing and building after Castano beat Patrick Teixeira, I knew that fight was going to happen. So I've been excited about it for a while. I just think this is going to be a hell of a fight. I think this might be one of the better fights of the year because Brian Castano, about Brian Castano. The man's going to come forward. He has some height. He's 5'7" with 67-inch reach, but at the same time, Brian Castano's been fighting guys taller than him his whole career. So height is not the big issue for him. You know what I'm saying? Coming into this fight, and he knows how to take that height away from you. So, in my opinion, this fight is gonna come down to whoever. I know it's cliche, but whoever implements their game plan and what they do well the best. It's gonna take some adjustments in order to beat whoever, to beat one another, and because both fighters are excellent fighters, so it's going to take some adjustments. But let me give some keys to Brian Castano's victory. If Brian Castano is going to win this fight, some keys for me, in my opinion, that if he does these things, this will give him a better chance to win this fight. And my thing is, of course, number one for Brian Castano is, close the distance. Number one, you're at a height and reach advantage, pretty significant, because Charlo has a 73-inch reach and he's 5'11". So he's got some significant height and reach advantage on you. So, of course, being the shorter fighter, you got to close the distance. You got to get in punching range. That's number one key. That's the key. Get into distance. Number two, get to the end. Number two, in my opinion, for Brian Castano in this fight, for what he needs to do to give himself a chance, when he gets into the inside, bang to the body. Of course, slow Jermell Charlo down, because that's the one thing I've watched, even as a hardcore Jermell Charlo fan. I've watched, sometimes he has some issues in the inside. Jason Rosario gave him some problems in the inside. He was able to have some success in the inside. You know what I'm saying? So that's the key, one of the big key. Number two, that's the number two key. Get in the inside. Throw that left to the body and look for uppercuts. Get Jermell Charlo to drop that guard and look for uppercuts. That's going to be key for Brian Castano in this fight. He has to get, to drop his guard in the inside and look for uppercuts. Left to the body, right uppercut to the head. He throws an excellent left hook to the body. So left hook to the body, right uppercut. That's one of the things. Number three for Brian Castano, don't abandon your jab. You're the shorter fighter, but don't abandon it. You got to get, he does a good job using his feet to get in the inside, and he does a good job of cutting the ring off and, slipping punches and dipping through punches and things like that. Brian Castano does a good job of that. But in this fight, use your jab too. I know you're the shorter fighter, but use your jab in this fight to try to get, to find that range and to get into that distance that Brian Castano needs to be in, which is the inside, in order to have success in this fight. So and then the third key for me in this fight for Brian Castano, keep Jermell Charlo going back towards the ropes. Keep him towards the ropes. That's where you're going to have your success at. That's where you usually have your success at. That's where you had your success against Lara. When you got Lara towards the ropes, he was able to try to, at times, cut the ring off. And that's the same thing he did against Patrick Teixeira. Do what you do, Brian Castano. Cut the ring off. Get Jermell Charlo back to the ropes and be Brian Castano. Get in the inside, be slick, let your hands go and things of that nature. And one thing I've seen from Brian Castano, and I know people will be like, what? Him, Tank Davis, and Canelo Alvarez use a type of similar fighting type of style and ideas when they're in the ring with each other. They're not the similar type of fighters, but I mean, not saying they're, Brian Castaño's on Tank Davis, he's at where Canelo Alvarez is at and then where Tank Davis is at right now in their career. But what I'm saying is they both are all undersized for their weight classes. All of them, Tank's 5'5", Canelo's what, 5'9", you know what I'm saying? Brian Castaño's 5'7", so they're, and Canelo fights at what, 168 pounds. Tank fluctuates through 130, 145, 140 and 130, and they all use those similar kind of styles. So Castano's a good fighter. Now for my keys for Jermell Charlo in this fight. My keys for Jermell Charlo in this fight is create distance. Create distance. Even when you're inside, clinch him up, hold on to him, get the ref to break you up, and always create distance. Create distance. That's the key for Jermell Charlo in this fight. Use your feet, create distance. Don't give up Brian Castano any opportunities to get in the side. Number 2, Jermell, look when Brian Castano leaps in for punches, because Brian does leap in for punches sometimes. And that's going to be your opportunity. Look for counter-punching opportunities in the mid-range, in the mid-range. Look for counter-punching opportunities in there. Get him to leap in with his shots. And when he leap in his shots, timing and put it on him. Try to put it on him. And number 3, use the straight right hand. Brian Castano is susceptible to that straight right hand. I've seen that against Wale Omatoso, and I've seen that against Edislandi Lara. No, he didn't get knocked out. No, it didn't deter him, but he is open to that punch. So look for the right straight hand in this fight. That is key in this fight. And so yeah, that's key. Look for the straight right hand, and use your feet, use your movement, use your height and range. Jermell Charlo, you got the physical tools. You're the more taller, you're the longer opponent. Use that. You got the athleticism. Use your feet. Try to stay out of range. Stay away from the ropes, and look for the straight right hand. Look for the straight right hand, and look to counter him when he's leaping in. Pretty much, that's the game plan, in my opinion, should be for Jermell Charlo. That's the game plan for Brian Castano. And with all that being said, with me saying this, this need to happen, it's time to give a prediction for this fight. I'm going to go with Jermell Charlo to become the 4-belt undisputed junior middleweight champion. The first undisputed junior middleweight champion since the great Winky Wright. I think Jermell Charlo will pull this off. But it will be a good fight. It will be competitive. Jermell have some moments where it can look a little shaky, but I think Jermell Charlo will get a decision in this fight. I believe it'll be a unanimous decision. Knockout, I don't know, because I've never seen Brian Castano really get rocked. I've seen him get pushed back a little bit against Michael Soro, and I've seen that before, but I've seen Teixeira hit him with a couple of good shots, but the man seems to have a good chin. He's never been knocked down. He's never been stopped. So I don't know. I can't really say that. I don't know if Jermell gonna get the knockout in this fight. But I'm going with unanimous decision, Jermell Charlo. I think that Jermell will make the adjustments. I think early on, Brian Castano will give him some issues. Early on, Brian Castano will put the pressure on him. He's going to be fresh. He's going to get after Jermell. It's going to take Jermell some time. But I've seen from the Tony Harrison fight, from the Jason Rosario fight, when I watch those 2 fights, and then I'll go back even a little bit more against Austin Trout, I've seen that Jermell Charlo is able to make adjustments on the fly. He does a good job of it. That's one of his underrated skills. The man does a good job of adjusting on the fly. And I think he'll be able to do the same thing against Brian Castano and pick up the unanimous decision. So that's my predictions for the Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano 4-belt junior middleweight undisputed unification bout. That is my predictions. That's who I'm rocking with. But y'all be good. Y'all be safe. Von Blues Boxing. I'm out.